Okay, and I'm rewinding. When deciding what to do, because I knew we'd have a break now for Christmas and then New Year's, they're both on Mondays, so I knew that we wouldn't have classes. I was thinking what to do as a standalone, and one of the things that I found, originally I thought that I would teach prayer as a month-long session or 6 weeks, but it just feels like a lot when you teach prayer like that. It's just too much to absorb, too much Hebrew, too much information. So instead, I prefer to sprinkle prayer throughout the year, here and there, give a class on prayer, maybe focus on a topic, maybe take a zoom out lens, really where the class is, so that overall over the 2 years, and I have done it a little bit last year as well, we go over and over so that there's some feeling and of what prayer is all about, what you have to say, what you should say. For each person, it might be a little bit different what it looks like, depending on how much Hebrew you know, how much you go to the synagogue, to the shul, things like that. So as I looked back on the list of things that people wrote that they would like to learn about, for the biggest thing was kosher, and we did that for 2.5, 3 sessions. So we really did quite a deep dive, and I answered as many questions as was asked, although new questions often come up. So always feel free to ask questions, anything about being kosher, in, out, just things that seem odd, doesn't matter. Feel free to always ask. But one thing that came up was prayer, that prayer just feels awkward, long, overwhelming, different language, don't know how to connect, can't figure out what to do on Shabbat, on holiday, during the week. And I wanted to, first of all, validate that it really is a lot, especially because it's in another language. And to say, let's take some time. Let's take some time to talk about prayer. I would imagine that everybody in this room, in this Zoom room, is on slightly different places in your path. Some of you read Hebrew, some of you don't read Hebrew, some of you may read a little bit of Hebrew. That makes a big difference. As a matter of fact, if you read Hebrew, please raise your hand. Okay, Jeffrey, do you read Hebrew? Is that a yes? I don't know. No, you're muted.
Yes, I read Hebrew, but not so well.
But not so well. Okay, so you're in the middle, kind of, about reading Hebrew. And David and Chelsea, you don't read Hebrew at all, a teeny bit, not at all. So unmute, first of all. It's a small group, it's fine. I really want to talk a little bit. Let's talk first about reading Hebrew and what it adds. So I'd love to hear from Gabby and Tifara Ruth. Did this change anything for you when you learned how to read Hebrew? What changed for you, if it did? I'd love to hear. Tifara Ruth, you want to start with that?
It definitely deepened the meaning of the prayer, so it allows you to connect with prayer and text and the melodies, honestly.
Oh, and the melodies. That's a good point. Yeah.
So
okay. Yep.
If there's a disconnect between like finding depth in the prayer, then the Hebrew makes that like firm connection for me.
Nice. Okay, thank you. It's a good way to describe it. Gabby?
Yeah, I think for like it's definitely very important, and it I don't know, for me it was a little bit interesting because I sort of learned like modern Hebrew in university, and then that's how I learned to read Hebrew, so it wasn't necessarily in like a religious context, but then obviously it applies to reading prayer. So for me, it's also nice that I can kind of generally understand what it means in addition to just being able to sound out and say it. So I feel like that adds a lot, like just being able to, I don't know, understand a little bit more of like what actually I'm praying for. And a lot of the times, like when I'm really, especially like trying to be mindful of what it is actually that the prayers are about, like it makes me realize that, yeah, these are actually important things to ask for or important things to think about that maybe otherwise wouldn't have necessarily crossed my
They would
mind.
go right by you, perhaps.
Yeah,
oh,
like
I see that you wouldn't
it
have
really
thought of
helps
that.
emphasize like how many blessings or how many things were given in any given day. Like just like I started playing Shachari, and a lot of the the morning prayers that are like involved like all like the 14 or the I think 13 or 14 things that you pray for, like a lot of them is like, oh wow, those are actually sort of like important, like just waking up and being able to tell the difference between night and day. That's not something you would normally wake up and be grateful
Right, that's right. Makes you more
but
attuned.
when you actually like that's part of your prayer, like wow, that actually is a big deal. And that is something to be grateful for. And that is like something that you can sort of try to feel the divine in. So
Oh, nice. Ooh, I like that you brought divine in there. Beautiful. So I want to add, thank you very much. I want to ask, what about for you, Jeff? Did something change for you? When did you learn Hebrew, by the way?
So I learned Hebrew in Hebrew school as a child, but I've been honing my reading ability over the years as I became more observant.
Wait, did you go to a synagogue, to a shul when you weren't observant?
Well, yeah, but there was a lot of English. It was
Oh, there's a lot of
Reform.
English. Where's that, Reform?
Yeah, and
I thought Reform started using more Hebrew, but maybe I was wrong about that.
maybe so, but that was the 80s and
Yeah. I understand. Yep.
so
And I think it came back later. Yep.
and but I'll tell you, I really think the what's really necessary is to know the meaning of words. And I remember going to hear, oh, I forget her name right now. Oh, Esther Youngris on the Upper West Side. And she would say, like, for example, the name Kalev, who's a character in the Bible. And
Kalev?
yeah, Caleb. So
Caleb, yeah.
they say his name means, like, it's also similar to the word for dog. Caleb,
Kalev, yeah.
because it means all heart, because his,
Well, it also means kalev, like a heart.
or like a heart.
Yeah, lev is heart. So ka is kaf
Mm,
is a prefix that means like or similar to.
very cool. And but the impression I got was that, you know, when you know the significance of words, you start to really, especially if you're praying these words, you'll feel it more if you understand what you're saying, rather
Right.
just making sound.
Mouthing them. Yeah. I mean, it is true that, there's a lot of words and they go sometimes pretty quickly. So there's not necessarily always time to really focus on what the words mean. So I just want to be very open about that. So for David and Chelsea, would you say that that is like a barrier for you for going to a shul, not knowing Hebrew, not reading Hebrew? What do you think about it?
I don't think it's
Either.
a barrier for me.
Good. So tell me more.
But also, like, I feel like every time I've been to a shul, I've kind of had my hand held. Like, I have a friend there
Right.
who, like,
Right.
just kind of opens
Yeah.
the book for me. So I think it's like a barrier to like being independent in my
Right. No, I know
journey.
exactly what you mean, to
Sure.
being independent. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. I hear that.
And I think
And
like
is
there are things where I'm like, I've like learned some words and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Like Rosh
right.
Hashanah, where it's like head of the new year. I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. It's not just words. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just like it's really I tried a little bit of like just like learning the alphabet and it's just so different that it's like definitely something that you're not just gonna pick up unless you like dedicate time to learning. And I have not
Yes.
done that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I also think that different people learn in different ways. So it could be that you
Mhm.
need a specific type of learning that would work better for you. I do highly recommend it. There are, like the RCA, I think does not convert people unless they have some sort of a learning disability, maybe, I don't even know, but somebody has to be able to at least minimally read Hebrew, like be able to read, let's say, the blessings in Hebrew, just as an example. Not all of
Mhm.
davening, but so we don't have that, but we highly recommend it because it helps so much to connect you, even if you only start by knowing certain phrases, but reading them and understanding them makes a very big difference in connecting with these phrases that feel so basic to our liturgy. And liturgy is a big part of what we do, even if it's making a blessing on the candles before Shabbat, or making kiddush, or saying the hamotzi, the blessing over the bread, or as Gabby was saying, the blessings for the morning. So I'm not saying you have to daven for 3 hours on Shabbat, but it really makes a difference to spend some time learning the basics. And yes, it includes learning how to read, learning the letters, and just practicing them however it's done. as well as understanding some basic words. And I think at some point it will be worth exploring what would be the best way for you to do that. There are all sorts of programs out there. You have to kind of bite the bullet and decide it's time for me to start, and knowing that it will be a process. And some people also just take to languages easier than others. You know, that is true just in general in life. I mean, my son speaks Hebrew and English fluently, and he taught himself Chinese. Now, how many people can do that? But he also is a professor of Chinese archaeology today, but he also spent 2 hours a day in school practicing Chinese because that was one of his majors. So that's in addition. So obviously he has an affinity and he likes it. I'm not saying everybody has that. And I'm not saying it's not difficult. I'm not trying to minimize. But it also doesn't mean that you have to be the one to get up there and lead services, which would be a much different level of knowledge. So I think that for you to hang on to what you said, Rosh Hashanah, it means so much more when you know what it means. So it's not about understanding every single word. There are many words I don't understand, like Psalms, very hard to understand it without an English translation very often. But I mean, I speak Hebrew pretty fluently, but some of it is just very poetic, like reading Shakespeare or reading, even Psalms in English can be hard to understand, even if you're a fluent English speaker. So I do want to suggest it, and Chelsea will just, keep trying different directions, or until you feel, I can't keep pushing this off. So this is not a judgment call. It's not saying you're doing something bad. I totally get that this is a hard thing to jump into, and it won't get better without putting the time in. So it's just not going to change. I mean, right. Okay. David, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it's like it is a barrier, but at the same time, it's not like preventing me from engaging with it. And I think, like full disclosure, my boyfriend broke up with me in this like past 6 weeks. I've been like, yeah, let's go. So been like praying a lot more. And anywho, I've like actually it's gotten easier to like use the transliterated and try to find my spot in prayer. So
Oh, good.
getting like I get more of the song and dance of it all. So it's like choreography, but yeah, so the English does resonate with me, but I could totally see I'm like conversational Chinese, so I obviously know how like another language has its importance and all of its like intricacies.
Mhm.
It would be much better if I did know Hebrew.
Right. So again, I'll say the same thing to you as you continue. If you continue, we can keep trying occasionally different options. Just people teach it in different ways, and I'm not particularly familiar because I don't teach speaking Hebrew or reading Hebrew, so I don't have that particular skill set. But there are people who really specialize in this, and that's something to think of. We had, I don't know if anybody here learned with Batya Keller, who I offered, I think it was last year. And some people connected beautifully with it. Some people did not. There were also programs by NOJP or NJOP or something like that. And I want to send that to the class just for you to explore on your own to see if their courses in Hebrew are worthwhile for you to try. And, I would say it's going to be hard to wait for a time in your life when you have a lull. You're never going to have a lull where like, 6 months, I'm just going to learn Hebrew. It's just not, life doesn't work like that. At least I don't think it does. So I want to recommend it strongly, and at least to be able to read the minimum, like read a blessing in Hebrew, read the bracha, and understand the words. And by the way, the words repeat themselves. So once you understand it once, you kind of know it always. But I do think it's important to learn the Shema, what we say when we cover our eyes. That's a very seminal part of Judaism, to say Modeh Ani in the morning, when we say we thank God for returning our soul, to say those blessings in the morning. There are certain small parts that I think are very powerful to learn. Powerful, meaningful, connective. Okay, I wanted to have a discussion about Hebrew, and just to see where everybody is at and what it does for you. Now I have here next to me transliterated Sidurim and a Koren Sidur. And I want to know which ones you use, and if this group, or what questions this. So what are those two? I know the transliterated. Are they both transliterated? Wait, you're muted, David. Unless there's background noise. I don't care if you're unmuted. Shab-
We got the Shabbat one.
Oh,
weekday.
good. Oh, mine are both brown. It'd be so much more convenient if one was white. I always have to look. I sometimes take they look almost exactly the same. They're almost exactly the same size. You think they would have done something like a different color, not just write weekday and Sabbath and festival. I have to like look at it every time. Maybe I'll put a little something on it so that I'll recognize which one is a star or something. Okay, so I would love to hear which of the two you would want to spend time on. Do you want to speak about the differences, the same? I would like to hear where your interest is in this group, since this is the group that's here. So I'd be happy to hear from you. What is it that if I was just asking you, forget about the rest of the group, sorry, just for a moment, what would you be interested in learning or talking about prayer? David.
So since I was doing being fed the page numbers in the group through
The 750 Tefillah on Zoom. Yep.
yeah,
Helen.
like that made things make sense, but I was just like wondering, is that sort of like universal where people are saying those things in that order, as far as like I'm forgetting the exact order.
You want it, but it didn't follow an order of the book? Did she go back and forth?
Yeah, so some things were like going back and
Right.
forth.
Oh, so you want to know about the order, if I'm understanding. Why is it that different people do things? Excellent question. Love the question. It's a great, great question. We're going to park it for a moment just until I hear what other people want. Don't forget the question. And somebody else, anybody, I want everybody to chime in on what might interest you, please. Tifara Ruth, you want to say something? What would interest you to talk about prayer, davening, tefillah?
So I think you and I touched base on this a little bit, but I need to get a little bit more perspective on the daily prayers.
On the daily prayers, okay.
Yeah.
And actually that would coincide at least a little bit with David, because he was talking about the daily ones. Great. Gabby?
Yeah, so right now I've been praying Shachrit until Ihi Ratzon. So I
What
think
is Yehi Ratzon? There's many Yehi Ratzon, sorry.
yes, the one that's right after Birkot HaShachar.
Shachar.
Yeah, so I feel like for me it would be helpful to have like a breakdown of like all like the daily prayers, what
Right.
what the actual prayers are in them. And also like in terms of like praying on your own versus praying in a minyan.
Beautiful. Great.
Like
Great.
when it's important, or things like that of that nature.
Terrific. So we're expanding slowly the daily prayer. Great. That looks like what we're going to focus on. I just want to welcome the other Gabby, and say, Gabby, until now we spoke about, what did we speak about? We spoke about prayer. We spoke about Hebrew, people who do or don't know how to read or understand Hebrew, whether it feels like an impediment. Does it help? Does it add? What about you, Gabby? Do you read or speak?
That was my question, because my Hebrew is going along very slowly. And I know, at least for my partner, for him, it's very important for prayers to be in Hebrew. So I guess I was just wondering, until I get to that point, what the in-between is like.
Okay, that's a good question. Great. And do you use the transliterated Siddur?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, great. Chelsea, any thoughts?
Oh, I also use a transliterated Siddur. Oh, but for things I wanted to talk about,
Yeah.
I was interested in hearing more about the brachas, like for different foods, and like.
So we'll do a unit on that. We did a unit,
Okay,
but we'll do
perfect.
another one. No problem. I don't know if did everybody here do the unit on blessings on food other than Gabby Umanova? Did anybody else do the unit on blessings
I think
on
I
food?
did it. I just like.
But
I
you'd
don't
like a
remember,
refresher.
what has precedence
Yeah,
or
no
anything, yeah.
problem. We can do that enfolded within another one. It doesn't have to be a whole section. So we may go over it, Gabby, as you know.
About that, I wanted to say, yes, I've been doing classes at RAGE, which is Russian American Jewish Experience, which has been really fun. There's a big community here where I live in South Brooklyn, so they have programming. And yesterday, one of the other students gave out little cards that had all the brachot for food on them. And it's just like a teeny tiny card, and it just has all of the prayers on there, and it's super convenient.
Not the prayers, the blessings.
Yes, the blessing. Sorry, yes.
It's important to differentiate because we clearly differentiate, even though you could say a blessing is prayer. I agree.
Yes, yeah,
There's a
sorry.
very specific formula. No, it's okay. I think it's important to share with the group that prayers and blessings, at least in Orthodoxy, we don't use them interchangeably. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Even though there are many blessings in prayer, and even though every blessing is a prayer, when we talk about prayer, we're really talking about the service of the prayer services. Okay,
Yeah.
so Gabby, can you find out where that was from?
Yeah, I'm gonna find it. It's really convenient. It's transliterated the blessings on it as well, so that, and it's like literally like teeny tiny. You could put it in your pocket, but it breaks it down, like what food type, and what the blessing
Amazing.
would be. So it's really nice.
I also have a cheat sheet that I made,
Yeah,
but it's
pretty
not
much
teeny
that.
tiny. It's not teeny tiny. And
Yeah.
teeny tiny. Well, on the computer, you can use the bigger one or print it out. But I can see when you go somewhere, when you start saying blessings, brachot on foods,
Yeah.
you might want that. That would be great, Gabby, if you could find that for us. That would be awesome. Okay. Jeffrey, what do you want to say?
I just wanted to say, I don't want to speak out of turn in regard to Latoya, but she uses a transliterated and she's starting to get acclimated, but I thought perhaps
Hadassah, I have to put you on mute. Sorry. Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
perhaps you could make suggestions for her in terms of maybe the big things that she should in terms of prayer. She enjoys saying brachot with me, but
What do you mean brachot? Like blessings on food?
yeah, like washing the hands before a meal and then on challah, on
Nice.
and I thought I would try to start to, when she goes to shul, let her just have a snippet of something to focus on and then maybe broaden from there, because it seems like she's overwhelmed. I'm sometimes overwhelmed, quite honestly, but I think it can be a little overwhelming. And
So let's
know,
leave Shabbat. I think we're going to focus on weekday, and we'll incorporate Shabbat another time. Maybe we'll do a session on Shabbat prayers and blessings on food. How would that seem, Chelsea? I think that probably would work. Okay, great. Yeah, so hold that thought. We won't do it today. She's not here in any case. So I feel like it's always better when you are there, because then you can ask the questions that you don't know, the questions that you don't understand, that you're interested in. So let's leave that for a time when she's there. Okay. Hadassah, welcome. I'm sorry I had to mute you. There was noise in the background.
Oh, it's okay. Hi,
Okay,
Baba.
great.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
hello.
Hadassah went through the conversion class a few times and converted with us at the Bait. So
Yes, I
beautiful
did.
picture, by the way.
Thank you. I'm waiting for
That
my
picture of
son.
the dog.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's, as you know, that's up to finding a time. My voice is back.
Oh,
So
no,
we can
no.
set a
I don't
time.
mean Arian. I mean my oldest son.
Oh,
He's
you're
coming
just
from-
waiting for him. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So let's talk. So I want to go back to what different people's questions are. So I remember, because I already feel like I forgot. Chelsea, I'm so sorry. I really did forget your question. I really apologize. Oh, you asked for blessings on food. Sorry. Okay. Right? Is that true? Chelsea?
Yeah.
And did you want something from prayer also?
For prayer, I mean, like a refresher on the morning prayers would be really good.
On morning prayers during the week or morning prayers on Shabbat?
During the week.
Excellent. Okay, that's what we're going to focus on. And you'd think I'd remember, it just happened a few minutes ago. So maybe what we need to talk about is what are the different parts. Oh, you wanted to know if they're in different order, David. Why do we jump around sometimes? In other words, which pieces are interchangeable and which things are more steady rocks? How would that would be the way I would describe it. Right. There is some, and then Gabrielle asked what would be the difference between praying by yourself? Something about the order also, and what's the difference between praying by yourself and if you're in a minyan, if you're in a prayer quorum. That's the official word in English. What makes a minyan in Orthodoxy?
And Jewish men.
10 Jewish men age 13 and up. So women do not add to a minyan. By the way, the 11th man doesn't make the minyan any stronger or better. I mean, it might make it stronger if somebody leaves, but it doesn't change the nature. You could have 10 men or 1,000 men or 1,000,000 men. It's all considered a minyan. However, it still beautifies being together before God. What we say is something called Berov Am Hadrat Melech, that God's glory is magnified as you have more people who are coming together. So I always tell the men and women, I don't always say it, but I often say it, that the 11th man and the women are similar. You don't need the 11th man to make a minyan. The minyan is already there with the first 10 men or whatever. And the women don't add to minyan, but everybody adds to the davening space. Did everybody get that? I think that's an important distinction to make for people in Orthodoxy, to kind of empower the women. And I'm sorry, Difara Ruth, remind me what you wanted to talk about. I apologize.
That's okay. The daily blessings.
So again, the daily blessings, did you mean the ones at the beginning of davening? Is that what you meant by the daily blessings? I'm not sure what you mean by that.
I think just like as you go throughout the day, like, after you use the restroom before you.
Oh, so that's not prayer, that's blessing. So blessings are a different unit, even though it's a type of prayer. We're going to go more in the formalized prayer today. Okay. So yes, blessings. We definitely did a class on that, and we will repeat that. And those who know it don't have to join for that day, or they can join and learn something else. But yes, we will repeat that either, I don't know how long you'll be in the class, but either we'll do it this year or we'll repeat it next year, or we'll do it every year. So, okay. So we're going to focus not so much on the blessings. And I agree, there are blessings on all sorts of blessings we say during the day, including on food. I think that's great to have a unit, and we've done that, and we will repeat it. Let's talk about, so those who have it, please open your transliterated or your regular one, Gabby. I realize that, do you want me to give you the page number, Gabby, in the Quran also? You have the Quran, Sidor?
I have this one. It's like everything in it, I think.
So I don't know the page number for
Yeah,
that.
but if you just try to tell me where we're at, I will try.
Okay. So we did do this a little bit, but we're going to do it again. Oh, I did it with people separately. Okay. All right. First of all, prayer in the morning is made up of pieces that we say when we wake up. We thank God for giving us our soul back. We've talked about that. We had a class on that. Prayers that called Moda'ani or Moda'ani for a girl, for a woman. Prayers that we say when we wake up. We thank God for giving us our soul back. We wash our hands, have a ritual washing and a ritual blessing that we say. Yes, it's, as I said, there are many blessings within prayer, but anyway, so we'll find them sprinkled throughout prayer. And then we have morning blessings. Actually, it's called Birkot HaShachar, which Shachar, it means dawn. So it's the blessings that we say from dawn and onward in the morning, the blessings of dawn. And that is the first part of morning prayer. Now, I can tell you where that is in people, for men, or it could be women, but mostly men, where tzitzit, you know what that is? The ritual garment that has fringes. Everybody know what that is? Not the talit, the talis that we put on, let's say in shul or wherever. It's actually an undergarment. It's worn underneath the shirt for men as a rule. So there's the blessing for that. There's the blessing for the mitzvah, putting on tefillin, how do you pronounce it, Martin? Phylacteries, which is a terrible word because tefillin is so much easier. Anyway, that's the black strap that gets wrapped around. It has portions from the Torah written on it. Again, mostly men are commanded to do it. Women may do it. So though you're going to find those blessings. And then we praise God. Then we get to page 70 for those who have transliterated. Page 70. So it's the blessing on washing our hands. It's the blessing. This is what Tifara Ruth was asking about. We're not going to do a deep dive. We'll do that another time. The blessing after using the bathroom, because most of us use the bathroom in the morning, and we don't say God's name until we wash our hands in the morning. And then we get to blessings on 71. These are the blessings of the morning. This is a blessing on reading the Torah. There are words about the mitzvot and the good acts we could do on page 73. There's thanking God again for giving us our soul back. And then there's the blessings. And yes, these blessings are a part of daily prayer, but you don't say them outside of prayer generally. And then 75 starts the prayers, the blessings, the morning blessings, the blessings done. So one of them is that giving us the wisdom, or giving the rooster the wisdom to differentiate between day and night. Like that's, as Gabby was saying, this is something she may not have noticed if she didn't have that. And then there's one that's difficult for this group, who did not make me a non-Jew, because God did make you a non-Jew. So that's weird to say, but a Jewish person is, I'll say, great, or at least that's the way they set it up, that a Jewish person is grateful that they don't have to go through conversion, or that they're grateful they're born a Jew. Today's day and age, tell you, people, lots of people don't necessarily think it's a blessing to be a Jew, considering what's going on in the world. Not trying to be
I have
cynical.
a question.
Yeah, Gabby.
This has come up in one of my other classes, is that there's certain like requirements to praying. Like I didn't know this before, that you have to be dressed, you have to wear shoes. Like,
That's a good
so
point.
that would be something that I would want to learn more about, because it hadn't even occurred to me that there are certain regulations for how you should act when you pray. So if we could also go over that, like what does that look like in the morning? Because like I
So
wake up
Gabby, you know what? I would love for you to research that and come back and
Okay.
tell us next time. I bet you could. You'll find it in My Jewish Learning. You know, that's really, by the way, if you were sick, if you were, in the hospital or not
Mhm.
feeling well, you could stay in your pajamas.
Mhm.
But yes, you want to get up, you go to the bathroom, but why don't you see what the halakha, what the Jewish law says? Very nice. I never thought of mentioning that. That's so obvious to me that I didn't think of mentioning it. That's true. Okay, great. So you have a little task to do for next time, and you can introduce it. By the way, that's one of the ways I like doing class. When somebody has a question, if it's a question that I feel they can research, and then bring it to the class for next time. Then there's a bracha, blessing that God didn't make me a woman. And, people give a justification to that because men have so many more mitzvot, commandments that they're commanded in, but it's a little contentious and uncomfortable for a lot of modern women, but we'll move on with that. Women have a different one. It doesn't say that you haven't made me a man, but that God made me as God's will. So like we always say, why can't both the men and women say the same thing? Wouldn't that be better? God made me according to God's will. Why do I have to say didn't make me a woman? But we're not going to get into those philosophical arguments because we could spend the next hour discussing it. Mm-hmm. Then it's about blessing God for opening our eyes, for dressing. Everybody see that? They're on page 76, 77. And by the way, it used to be that people said it as they got dressed. They said about getting dressed. As they opened their eyes, they said it, they couldn't do when they're opening their eyes, but after they washed their hands and said the first blessing after using the bathroom. And putting us firmly on the ground, maybe that's a blessing for gravity. These blessings, this whole morning routine, that is the routine that I feel is the most important thing to start with. First of all, it can speak to you. It's picturesque. It has easy meaning. And in fact, I'm going to ask each person here to tell me if there's one blessing from these that is speaking to you right now and why. And you don't have to say it, it doesn't have to be the literal translation. So please look at these blessings and see if one has meaning for you. I would say from 70, starting from 75. I mean, I'll say one that there's a blessing on 77, Matir Asurim, who releases those that are bound. And I mean, it says here, we acknowledge daily our appreciation to freely move our limbs that were bound in sleep. But I'm also thinking of those hostages who were bound and now are free, not counting the 3 who were killed by friendly fire. And thinking about those, what a miracle it will be when hopefully the others will be freed as well. Doesn't have to be quite so existential. It can be much more specific. Like I had an eye infection and now I can see. That's okay too. Anybody jump up? Come on, jump in, jump in. No judgment. Whatever you say is perfect. Farah Ruth, you have one that's speaking to you?
I'm trusting that I'm at the right section. I think I know I have a different Sidor than
Do you
everyone.
have the morning blessings?
Yes. So I think I'm at the right section where you all are. It's where
Okay.
I think they're like 13, but
Yeah, I think there's about 13, let's say, yeah.
okay. So
Oh, so
that, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's like opening the eyes, clothing the naked, those, yeah, that's the one, that's what we're at.
Okay. So mine, of course, because of, I think everybody knows I've just been like a mess because of the war. So I definitely is strengthening the people of Israel with courage. I think that's the
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you.
yeah, every day.
Beautiful,
Like
beautiful, beautiful. So you, okay, anybody else? No, everybody else, I would love to hear. What's speaking to you right now? Please, can unmute. Okay. Quiet today. Yeah, Jeffrey.
I like the one Hamachin Mitzadeh Gaver, who firms man's footsteps or women's footsteps, because I think about my elderly mother when she was alive and she used to walk with a walker. And then her best friend also had that walker. And I remember they used to walk around the floor together, and he always outraced her. And but it was nice that they had this item to help them to be able to walk.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Beautiful. Gabrielle, sorry.
Yeah, just Gabby is fine.
Gabby, right, Gabby. So you got to rename so I don't get confused.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah.
it's fine either way. Yeah, I think those everything that people have said has been great. I also I like the one that who raises those bound down. That's my translation, I think. For a lot of the same reasons. I think right now is a time when a lot of us need our strength. And this idea of being able to like keep your back straight, keep your head up, and to carry on even in difficult times is something that feels really important.
Nice. Thank you, Gabby. Amen. Amen. David?
I like who gives sight to the blind, because at different times in our life we're gonna be blinded and we won't know it, and then everything becomes apparent at its proper time in God's timing.
Beautiful. Thank you. Nice. Chelsea, you got something? Speaks to you?
I also really like the one who makes firm a person's steps. My interpretation was like making someone resolute in their actions and like doing things decisively and having sort of like that autonomy. And
Nice.
also like along those lines, who made me free, like the gift of freedom is a beautiful thing, and being able to like make our own decisions in life and live life the way we want to live it.
Right. We appreciate that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Gabby Taylor?
I like who provided me with all my needs. I don't know if it works in Hebrew, but it's kind of neat in my when I read it, because it's like, oh yes, like if you have needs, God will help you, but also the fact that you have needs because God gave you the ability to need things is kind of nice.
Thoughtful and deep. Thank you. Hadassah, is there one that you would like to share that you like saying in the morning or that means something to you? Nope, not available. Okay. So I think that you can see why these blessings can feel so powerful. And you could spend a few minutes on them, thinking about them, having them start your day. I think I shared once that modani about washing your hands and thanking God for giving us back our souls. That is how I recommend people to start their day. warm water, be thoughtful, allow the water, to really run on your hands, take a moment to be thoughtful and think about an intention or whatever it is that you want to, or what you want to let go of in the morning. And then really, these are good blessings. You could spend, a good few weeks, a couple months even, until you learn how to say them. And every day you might have a different interpretation that is meaningful to you. Tifara Ruth, did you want to add something?
Oh, sure. Well, I tell my daughters, when we say the blessing for the washing of the hands, that Hashem is giving you a clean slate. So, like,
That's nice.
so,
That's sweet. I like that. Yep.
yeah, yesterday is gone.
So I would say you would say till the bottom of 80. That would be how you would, but more important even than that would be to the bottom of 78. Like if you can get through that, that would be great. So we would start, so what are the pieces? We spoke about 54 Modani, I thank God, or Modani. And then from 54, we skip to, well, it's tzitzit and tefillin. So unless you're putting on tzitzit and tefillin, it's not so relevant for you. I don't know if you know these songs. Adon olam asher malach. Anybody know that from Shul? B'terem kol yitzir nibra. These are the 13 principles of Maimonides, which are put into a song, and that can be found on page 67. It's more helpful if you know a tune for it, so you don't have to do it, but it repeats itself in another form on 68. So those who know it as a song find it very easy to sing it. But if not, I would just go straight to 70 and work your way through until you get to the bottom of 78, okay? Those are very meaningful, powerful prayers. So that is considered the morning blessings. And then, it's a prelude to the beginning of Shacharit, from the word Shachar, Shachar meaning dawn, okay? Now, so that, I would say, David, pretty much, sometimes there are shuls, like our shul, we don't say them in shul. We say them at home. They feel more personal and private. And also there are those blessings that, you didn't make me a woman, you didn't make me a non-Jew, or, that just feel like it doesn't include everybody. So let everybody choose what they want to say. But that is something that is said at the beginning. Now, there's something called Kaddish. Are people familiar? What, Martin?
I don't say the woman one because
Okay.
I don't believe in it.
Martin doesn't say the woman one. Do you say the other one, that God made me as Jasani Kirtano? Well, you should say that one instead. Well, I think you should say the other one, that God made me as God willed it. There's something called, that's my suggestion. So there's something called Kaddish. People familiar with what Kaddish is? Kaddish is what, there are a few types. Some of them are said by the person leading. It's a way of sanctifying God's name. It is said by mourners after somebody in their family, close family, has passed away. They say it for a month, or for parents up to a year. And then they say it on the day that the person passed away every year. And then there are two types of Kaddish that a mourner might say, or a person observing what's called the yahrzeit, the day of passing. So there are pieces that we say in the prayers that precede saying Kaddish. So David, that if you ever get to the very, very beginning, you might hear people say one passage and then either somebody announces or people just say Kaddish. And that's an important thing because it's a special prayer that mourners say, and they feel it gives them something to focus on when they're in mourning. So that's the very beginning. But the actual beginning of Tefillah is something called Baruch She'amar, which is on page 127 at the bottom. By the way, everything I've said till now is for every day or Shabbat. But people have asked, like, where do things get moved around? Now, there is something in shuls that is Ashkenazic Jews Ashkenazic Jews have two different ways. One is an Ashkenaz and one is Sfard. That's what they're called. And in there, David, there is some changing things around. And it just goes according to whatever story. Not a lot, but a little bit of the order of some of the internal passages. A little bit, not going, 20 pages and 20 pages back. But Psuke de Zimra, which if you look begins on page 127. Those are verses of song. And before we get to the heart of tefillah, what is the heart of tefillah, by the way? Who knows?
Amida, Shema.
Amidah and Shema. So Amidah is the standing prayer. That's what Amidah means, standing. So if you're not feeling well or somebody is, can't stand, they don't have to. But if you can, you stand. So the Amidah prayer is the central part, and it changes from weekday to Shabbat to a holiday to Yom Tov to Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah. It does change, and if there are days, holidays like Hanukkah, you say the regular one, but you add passages. So the Amidah prayer is the central prayer, and davening kind of leads up to it in a certain way. There's an arc of leading up to it, ARC, an arc leading up to the arc, you could say, when we read Torah, but and not every day do we read Torah. So the way we lead up to it is we say these verses. A lot of them are from Psalms, but not all of them. And they're joyful. They should be joyful. If somebody, during the week, people really don't have time to sing because they got to get up to work. So you're not going to have long drawn out, unless they're sitting and learning all day, Jewish studies, and they're in a yeshiva. But usually people don't have time for long drawn out, or they're retired, or I don't know what. So I would say there's no singing as a rule during the weekdays, but there's very often singing on Shabbat and on holidays. But in any case, the very minimum that you say for this portion, it's like a sandwich. There's a beginning one, the one at the beginning, that's on page 127. It's called Baruch She'amar. Blessed is one who spoke and the world came into being. Then there's one at the end, the very end, and there's one in the middle. And so if somebody doesn't have time or doesn't have the patience to daven everything, they would daven these three pieces. So one of them is Baruch She'amar, which is on page 127. That's like a sandwich. And in the middle is what's on page, it's Ashrei on page 139. It's a very important prayer that goes according to the ABC in Hebrew. It's said 3 times a day. That's how important it is. And the last one, and then there are all sorts of praises, psalms that are praising God. There's the Song of the Sea, which is also a joyful prayer. The last one on page 159 is called Yishtabach, which means may your name be praised. May your name be praised forever. So Baruch She'amar at the beginning, Yishtabach at the end, Ashrei in the middle. That would be the bare minimum of Psuke de Zimra, the verses of song. But my favorite are none of those. And I have a cousin who told me also, if he doesn't have time to daven, he'll only say this one. Look on page 136, please. Page 136, Mizmor L'Todah, Psalm 100 out of 150. It's a psalm of thanksgiving. And if you look at the English, it's really beautiful. A psalm of thanksgiving. Call out to God, everyone on earth. Serve Hashem, God, with gladness. Come before God with joyous song. Know that Hashem is God. It is God who made us, and we are God's. We are God's people. We are the sheep of God's pasture. Enter God's gates with thanksgiving, God's courtyards with praise. Give thanks to God. Bless God's name. For Hashem is good. God's kindness endures forever. And from generation to generation is God's faithfulness. Well, I love pretty much every line of this. I find it, I often take time and take a few moments in the 750, actually, David, when I don't really run it anymore. I did for like 3 years of COVID, and then other people took over. But one of our practices was that on Tuesdays, we would do Thankful Tuesdays, thankfulness, and we would stop at Mizmor L'Todah, and everybody had a chance to say something they were grateful for. And that was just a really, I don't know if Helen does it, or George, with whoever's leading. But if I ever lead on a Tuesday, I might be there tomorrow morning, in which case I would do it. I would ask people to share something they're grateful for. So that happens to be my favorite. It's usually said standing, just so you know. It says which is recited while standing, because you want to give God glory that way, give it importance, give it import. So those are the pieces that are part, I think, is that what you were talking about, Gabby, that you go up until there? Okay. So you don't have to, no, you went
No,
much.
I'm a little before that.
Oh, even before?
I don't, yeah.
So the next pieces for you to add, we've talked about this, Gabby. The next pieces for you to add would be 4 pieces, one by one. Baruch Shamar at the beginning. This
Yep.
Mizmor LaTodah. It's very short. You
Mhm.
could stick with that one. I don't care. Ashrei in the middle. By the way, I have a tune that I sing for Ashrei, so that makes it easier. And then Yishtabach at the end. And then you can start adding ones in the middle, but just do that. And I think that's a very good way to add to your davening.
Yeah, because in my book, after the 13 blessings, there is the binding of Isaac, and there's a bunch
Right.
of
So you can skip that.
okay.
For now,
So I
you
just-
can skip that.
okay. And
Just
just
for now.
start with
Yeah,
Baruch
you've got time to, go skip to Baruch Shamar and do it slowly. Add one, say it for a few weeks till you feel comfortable, then add another, so it's just
Yeah.
too much to say. Okay. And then the other ones are also beautiful, by the way, but it's just too much to say. Everybody with me? Do you have any questions? This is a good time to ask me. And I hear you, Gabby Taylor. Yeah, what did you want to ask me a question, Gabby? I feel like I left you
I-
behind somewhere here.
All good. I'm just wondering, like, when you do everything, like roughly how long it takes, like how much time should I be budgeting for?
Oh, that's a really, really, really good question. I think, are you saying to say it in English? So I don't know how long it takes you to say it in English. And I think even, there's something about the Hebrew, even if you don't understand every word, which carries you along. It has kind of a sing song. Atifara Ruth
Yeah.
is nodding. So you might not have that in the English. So I don't know that you have to say everything. I feel like there's an expression in Hebrew, if you grab too much, you grab nothing, because it's too much. It's overwhelming. So I really want you to take the smaller pieces that I'm mentioning. Say the blessings, add them a little bit at a time. You don't have to say them all at once. Well, if you say them in English, it's not so hard. But then add slowly, add one piece when you're comfortable saying that, and I want to encourage you at some point to learn Hebrew, because the Hebrew is going to make a big, big difference for you.
Yeah, no, it's tough because that's what my partner does for work. So getting him to help me is like bringing work home.
I don't think you should get him to help you, Gabby. I think you should do it separately and let him. Nope. I mean, I'm
No.
not saying you shouldn't let him, but if you don't have time, why don't you just go with the program? There are programs that teach it, and let him
Yeah.
help you with the program.
Okay, that might
It's
make
very
things a little
different when
easier.
you do it out of your spare time, unless you love doing it and you want to do it. I suggest I'll try to send when I get links to places that teach it. And
Sure.
then
Yeah,
you can
that'd be
try
great.
one out, and then I think it's worth it. I'll send it to the group when I see another one, and I'll send to the group. I think that it won't happen as easily, but if you do take a course, it'll be great because he could help you.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's
Okay,
in
cool. Thank you.
parallel to saying the blessing. So I want to encourage you also to say a couple of them in Hebrew in the transliterated, but I understand that you want to do the English. And then as you learn Hebrew, you'll say one blessing. And then when you get that one, you'll do another one. And then slowly it'll get easier.
Okay,
I
Sounds
bet if
good.
we circle back once a year, it'll feel very different. But you
That's
might
fair.
want to check in a little. Yeah. But I do think you should take a program that you pay for. You're committed, they're committed. Your partner doesn't feel like, he has to be the one, but he'll help you.
Okay, yeah.
I suggest that. That's my suggestion. You could do what you want, but that's my suggestion. Ruth, did you have a question?
No, not at
You're
all.
good? Okay. Chelsea, do you have a question? You're good.
Nope.
Okay, awesome. All right. So now, okay, so are people saying we have the blessings in the beginning, which kind of set the intention? Then we have praises of God that lift us up. And again, if you understand what you're saying, obviously it does help it helps if you sing, and it helps if you understand, maybe if you say the Hebrew, but can't change that easily. So here's the thing, who asked me, what's the difference, Gabby, what do you say? So everything that we've done, you say by yourself. I want you to know, anybody here ever went to Rosh Hashanah davening? It's very long. It's many hours. I have a friend he's very funny. He said he was once stuck years ago. He traveled a lot for work. He happened to be stuck in Switzerland. He was in a hotel. He wasn't even near a synagogue, near a shul. He's observant, but he got stuck there. He said, it's so funny. When you don't have a minyan and a chazan, it's 20 minutes. You're done with Rosh Hashanah. I said, I'm going every year to Switzerland. So first of all, it takes less time, but anything that you need a minyan, a quorum for, you don't say. So Kaddish is not said, though that special prayer that I said that mourners say, or that the leader says, the Chazan. You don't read the Torah. You don't repeat the Amidah. You don't have to catch up to anybody from, but so like if you look on 161, oh, you don't have that. But if you look before the Baruch Hu, you don't say Baruch Hu. So I'm just trying to see. I don't know, maybe you'd have to write for yourself the ones you say or don't say, but you don't say Kaddish, you don't say Baruch Hu, you don't say any repetition. So you don't say any of the pieces that are said in the repetition, like Kedusha. There's nothing to repeat for. You're just saying it to yourself. You don't read the Torah as a rule. Again, those are the pieces, but it does make it shorter because you're saying it to yourself at your own pace. Usually it makes it
Is
shorter.
there a specific prayer that you are obligated to do with the minyan? Like how, like in
Yeah,
like,
all those things I told you. Kedusha.
I know, but
No.
I'm saying like if you aren't in your day, like you don't ever go, like you don't go to pray like in the morning in a minyan, that's okay. Like you don't have to. Or like if you pray
The only thing is if somebody is in mourning, they would miss out on saying Kaddish.
Okay.
So that would be a big deal for them. And men have more of an obligation than women to be in a minyan, but hard for me to draw the line of where that starts and stops exactly. Not every man davens, not every man puts on tefillin, and they could still be observant. And not every man davens at all. Not every man davens in a minyan. It's certainly preferred, but it doesn't fit into your schedule. You just can't do it. You have kids, baby, whatever. School, yeah. But there's nothing you're missing out. I think that's a great question, but there's nothing you're missing out on.
Okay.
That's a great question, actually. Everybody following me here? You following the questions, the answers? Okay, great. Now we get to the blessings before Shema, and the blessings after Shema. Okay, so again, I don't know if you can see this kind of arc, which will end up at the pinnacle with the Amidah prayer, or you could say the Torah prayer if you wanted, the Torah reading, but that's only on Monday and Thursday, or fast days, or Hanukkah, things like that. By the way, this Friday is a fast day. Did we discuss that? Did we talk about that? Fast days? Yeah, I don't know if we'll have a chance. We may discuss it when we go to the next fast day, which is the day before Purim. So maybe we'll discuss it then, what we call the minor fasts. So we don't have time. I didn't think of teaching that today, but this is good. I'm glad we're talking about prayer. By the way, on fast days, there are special penitential, is that the right word? Penitential slichot. Prayers of special, like liturgical poems that are said that are hard. But if you read them in English, which by the way, David, if you join the service, we do it in English in that 750. And it's so good because then we pick the pieces that tell what happened that day, and you can't follow that in the Hebrew. It's too fast. You're rushing to get through. So unless you really know Hebrew, that doesn't mean people don't do it in Hebrew, just you wouldn't understand it. So that's something I'll get to more of that. Okay, so the next piece is now a biblical commandment to say Shema. But the way the sages set it up is that it creates an ambiance by talking about light and dark and talking about God. Always talking about God, which culminates in saying the blessings of Shema, which by the way, the blessings of Shema are different on Shabbat and weekday, just so you know. They're different, so don't get thrown by that. Then you say the Shema, so that I would say once you do the morning blessings, once you do maybe the pieces of Psukei de Zimra, or you could go to Shema first and then do the verses, the Psukei de Zimra, what I told you about, the Baruch Shamar, and remember I said the 4 pieces. You could do Shema if you want, like that's up to you. Shema is nice because it does have a tune that you can follow. And that's a tune that we read in the Torah, and that starts like this: Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, and then we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Ulam Va'ed in an undertone. That can be found on page 169. So that's generally a whole unit: the blessings before Shema, Shema, and the blessings after Shema. But I wouldn't tell you to do all of them. I would tell you start with Shema. Try to learn Shema, and if you need it recorded, I have recordings of it with the tune, if that's helpful to you. And take your time. Maybe you'll only get to that in a year. That's okay. It takes time to learn all the pieces. But it is fulfilling a biblical mitzvah when you say Shema, when you recite it. So that there were three different passages, all from the Torah. They're all all pieces that are in the Torah. Then there are blessings after Shema, and that brings us to page 179. So again, David, what we've had so far is the morning blessings, then the verses of song, then the Shema. I'm actually showing with my hands, but I don't think it makes a difference. And then the like this, we're kind of going up, and then now we're at the Amidah prayer. And then there'll be the pieces afterwards. All right. So those are the pieces that they're not really moved around very much, but sometimes within there are a few things that change if you're davening in a Ashkenaz or a Sfard shul, and then you just have to follow whatever's in that Siddur. So I don't know what else to tell you about that. And that could be complicated if you only have it transliterated, because there's only Ashkenaz for transliterated. I don't think they make a Sfard one. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I mean, we could talk about it more, but I think the answer to that is learning Hebrew. So the Amidah prayer, the first blessings are always the same. The last blessings are the same, but the middle part changes drastically. During the week, it's longer. It has many passages. Again, I wouldn't even tell you to learn all of them. Read one passage. Just read one of the middle passages and see how it speaks to you. Their national requests, their personal requests. And then on Shabbat, it's different. It's much shorter. On holidays, there are specific parts having to do with holidays, that some from the Torah, mostly from the Torah, where it quotes that particular holiday. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they're very, very long because we ask God forgiveness or give us long life. And then the end is the same. So now we have finished the Amidah, which theoretically is the pinnacle. Are people with me? Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. During weekday, there's something called tachanun. Tachanun are how do you say that in English? Beseeching, like beseeching prayers. So any day that's a holiday or a half holiday, like Rosh Chodesh or Chanukah, any days like that, you don't say tachanun, you skip it. Mondays and Thursdays, which are days when the Torah is read, it's longer because people used to gather together at the marketplace. So I guess that's why they made it longer. It seems a little ironic that the days when it's longer because of Torah reading, it's also longer because it's a longer tachanun. Like, what were you thinking? Couldn't you have just balanced everything out? But no, that's the way they decided to do it for whatever reason. But, pick one little thing to say. It's just too much for you to say all of that. Now, on days like fast days, or the days between the high holidays, holy days, we say something called Avinu Malkeinu, which means our Father, our King, and it's all requests from God. And I can imagine that this Friday, the 10th of Tevet, given everything going on in Israel and in the world, that is going to be very heart-rending. Like it's just going to be said from the heart, from the soul, these particular prayers, Avinu Malkeinu. They're always considered very special, and they'll be even more special because it's like, we have sinned before you, deal kindly with us, remember us in the book of life, just so many things in here. Open the gates of heaven to our prayer, accept with compassion and favor our prayer. I mean, this is what we ask God all the time now, to save the Jews, basically to save Israel. Whew. So that's going to happen this Friday on the fast day. Then there's this tachanun. Now, there is something called the Psalm of the Day, David, and this maybe speaks to it. Psalm of the Day, every day of the week, there's a different psalm from the book of Psalms. Some people say it right after the Amidah, and some people say it at the end. And that's something that we sometimes go back and forth. All right. But in our shul, for example, whenever there's a Musaf prayer, remember on Shabbat, we have davening, and then we have a second Amidah prayer, and in the middle is Torah reading. So days like Rosh Chodesh or Chol HaMoed or Shabbat or Yom Tov, when we have an extra Musaf prayer, we move the Psalm of the Day to the middle. That's all I can tell you. I'm not 100% sure why. I think it's because it's supposed to close the first part of the davening, the Shacharit part, the morning prayer, and not the extra prayer. I can't exactly. There are many different customs that are, but it doesn't really matter when you say it. It's just whatever your custom is. And sometimes we add to that, like on Rosh Chodesh, there's another psalm that we say. And on Chanukah, there's another psalm. And the month before Rosh Hashanah, there's a different psalm. So, those things change. And the problem is not every Siddur has it all in the right place. So sometimes it says, oh, go back to here to find it. So that's a little confusing. But I'm just giving you an example of why you might skip around. You might skip Avinu Malkeinu, you skip Tachanun, as I was just saying, because there are days when we don't say it. So that can feel confusing. Okay. After that is the last part of the tefillah, which again, remember that Ashrei prayer that was in the middle that I said you say it 4 times a day. So it appears again now on page 246. And again, if you know, it's something to think of for me to sing it and maybe record it. I don't know, so that it would be easier for you to learn it, but I'm not sure you're there yet. Because I do have a way of singing the whole thing, which makes it easier to learn it, because the song is always easier to learn. And there's a piece that, again, it'll say, skip it on a day that you don't say tachnun, because it's a happier day, so we don't say sad things. So if you look at the instructions, it'll tell you that. And we always finish every davening with Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol lateitku. That's on page 256. It's actually quite a beautiful prayer. And there is a tune for it, but that's how we generally finish up, except if you finish up with Psalm of the Day afterwards. So, so that could be a jumping around business. And what I skipped in the middle was on Mondays and Thursdays or Rosh Chodesh or any day when you read from the Torah, like Hanukkah, that happens after the Amidah, after the Tachanun. You'll see right in the middle, there's a place to read, supplication, that's what they call it. After the supplication prayers, there's a place to take out the Torah that starts on 233. Now, does anybody remember what we read on the Torah on Mondays and Thursday mornings? What is it that you read? Anybody know?
Is it a section of the parasha or?
It's
no?
a section. So every week there's a weekly portion. Are people familiar with that? It's divided into 54 portions. And every Shabbat, except when it's a holiday, we read the weekly portion. So depending on whether there are many holidays that came out on Shabbat or only a few, we sometimes have to double up on Parshiot to fit in those 54 always every year. The Monday, Thursday is kind of coming attractions for next week. We read the first Aliyah of whatever we're going to read the next Shabbat. That's it. It's pretty simple. It's short, but that's what we read. But on Hanukkah, we read something for Hanukkah. On Rosh Chodesh, we read something for Rosh Chodesh. On the intermediate days of Pesach and Sukkot, Chol HaMoed, you read something about that. So there are special, on a fast day, you read something else. It's on Friday anyway this year, so obviously it's not Monday or Thursday. Anybody know why we read on Monday and Thursday in between Shabbats? Anybody know? So the answer to that is that Torah is likened to water. And we say you cannot go without water for 3 days at a time, which means that Shabbat you hear Torah reading, Sunday you don't, Monday you do, Tuesday, Wednesday you don't, Thursday, you had to divide it as 7 somehow. So we never go 3 full days without hearing Torah reading, because it's likened to water, that we need it like water. There are reasons for things that, feel either mystical or they make sense, they're logical, or they're just lovely and mean something.
Did I hear that right? So every Monday and Thursday, you're reading the first Aliyah only?
First Aliyah.
Aliyah.
The first Aliyah of the next Shabbat, but you divide it into 3 little portions. Okay. On Shabbat, it might be 10 or 20 psukim verses, but in the middle of the week, it'll be 333 or 358 or something like that. The minimum verses that you can read is 3, so you'll never read less than 3. There are all sorts of laws having to do with reading the Torah. You don't need to know about them. I mean, I love them because I'm kind of nerdy like that. I love teaching Torah. I love all those, but you don't need to know them. If anybody ever wants to, I'd be happy to teach it to you, but it's not crucial because you're not organizing that. So you don't need to know that to become observant. Just need to know about it, that there is. Okay, do people feel totally like you gave me way too much information, or did you get anything out of this, or something in the middle? And did I answer everybody's questions? All of that. Who did I not answer? Maybe let's do it that way. Who feels like, wait a minute, there's just a whole bunch of gobbledygook, which is fine. Or does somebody have another question that I didn't answer, or you're interested in, or anything? Yeah, David.
It's getting clearer, but every time there's a repetition of the Amidah,
yes,
I get confused on exactly
what do you get confused by?
Does it read from the beginning of the Amidah?
Yes. 100%. It reads from the beginning of the Amidah. There are certain little portions that change. There's something called Kedusha, where we stand like angels, we put our feet together.
Right.
And so that happens only in the repetition.
Huh.
There's another little part that it's called the Thanksgiving prayer. And because the reader cannot say, nobody can say thank you for somebody else. You can only say thank you yourself. So he says one part and we say at the same time, we say a different part. Other than that, there's no difference. Pretty much occasionally 1 or 2 days a year, there's a slight difference, but not enough to make, like on a fast day, there's a difference. But I don't think you need to know that right now, but there is that portion that he might add. In general, it's exactly the whole thing for the, now it was originally set up because people didn't have prayer books. So he said it in order for people to follow along. But Jews, we don't like to take away. So once it was added, anyway, yeah, Jeffrey.
I wanted to ask about a rule. It might be a rule, it might not be, but if you're still reciting your own private Shemon Esrei, and now the community is a little faster as a group, and now they're reciting the communal Shemon Esrei, they're repeating Shemon Esrei, and they got
No, they're not. Just the Chazan is. Just the
Chazan?
leader is.
Okay, right. But
The only thing you'd have to
everybody's kinda
stop
watching.
for is Kedusha.
That's my
When
question.
they say Kedusha, if you're at the end of a blessing, I think you should say Kedusha with them.
Oh, yeah?
I'm not sure. I have to look into that. If you don't say anything, or if you actually, I think you just say Kedusha with them. Yeah,
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
sure.
Hmm.
So all of these things you can do at home by yourself. Remember, these are the weekdays. Shabbat is a little different, a lot different. And you just learn, take little pieces, take little chunks, little bites as you go along. It's a lot. I don't know if you'll ever get to a place where you say the whole thing. I'm okay with that, but I'd like you to learn more of them. And it's helpful if you are able to get on to like our 750 where it's more pace and you can just have practice saying it. But it's a Zoom one, so but it's a little tough. Yeah, see for our Ruth question? No? Okay.
Oh, no, I have no patience, sorry.
All right, friends. If there are no more questions, I'm sure there are many more things to say about Tefillah, but that's what I thought we'd go over today, spending a little more time. Anything else, David? Anything else you feel like, wait a minute, I get confused? No, you're good. Okay, just gives you the general. That's during the week, remember. I mean, it's a similar one for Shabbat, but it's different. And many more pieces we sing, and yeah, usually. Okay, next week is Christmas, so let's all celebrate Christmas on our own, not in a group. I'm actually going to be driving back from Columbus. I'm going to be in a car the whole day. And the following week is New Year's, and I'm sure people are off, and you should have off and take off. And then the following week, as far as I know, we're going to start back again. I was just asked to join a fellowship. So on the 22nd of January, I will not be around, but I'll tell you. And our next unit, from what I see right now, will be life cycles. From, to something a little more fun, hopefully. And just really going through the different life cycles, what to expect, what are they for, why are they called that, etc., and just talk about how they might look in different settings. And was there anything else that somebody asked me and I didn't answer? All right, well, Mazal Tov, Chelsea, you owe me a picture of your dress. Anyway, I want to see pictures from the wedding, so
Yeah.
everybody will look beautiful with their hair up and face and makeup, and in Florida, so you don't have to be freezing. It's really nice. All right, friends, thank you so much for coming on. Have a good week, a good few weeks, actually, till we're back again. And it's really nice to gather with you, always.
Bye.
Bye, friends.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Happy holidays.